And welcome to The Hardline. I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, filling in for Ed this evening. The Department of Homeland Security has begun preparing for a series of raids that would result in the deportation of thousands of illegal aliens in the United States. Joining me now to weigh in on this is Michael Cutler, former special agent for the INS and a dear friend of mine. Michael, good to see you, pal.
Dennis, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for having me. And let me start out by wishing you and yours a happy, healthy, and hopefully peaceful New Year.
Right back at you. Michael, is this for real or no? I mean, is the DHS really going to start deporting illegal aliens? Have our prayers been answered?
I'm not holding my breath. You know, I've come to call DHS the Department of Homeland Surrender. Just 2 weeks ago, Ms. Saldana, the head of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, at a congressional hearing admitted that she had sent back $113 million in funding because purportedly they could not find aliens worth deporting, even though she, by her own estimate, we now have at least 15 million illegal aliens present in the United States. This administration has been all about creating false illusions. The way they count deportations, for example, they include aliens who are simply turned around, denied entry at ports of entry, or where the Border Patrol simply turns them back. They're counting those as deportations. No administration has ever done that before. It's the equivalent of the police department saying that when they give a traffic ticket to somebody, it's the same as an arrest. So I don't trust anything.
So, Michael, Mike, let me cut you off. Mike, let me ask you this question. Michael, let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
You know this better than anybody. This has not been approved that they're going to start these raids. And from what I see here, it's going to target more than 100,000 families. First of all, how are we going to find these people? And secondly, who has to finally give the approval for this?
Well, you know, under the law, the agents supposedly should be able to go out and make arrests, but we know what's happened consistently when agents have gone out to make arrests. If they weren't sanctioned by the administration, they wound up in trouble. There were agents who were suspended. Here's the better question. Why are they announcing their intentions before the fact? I've never known of a law enforcement agency that's going to go out there and say in advance, we're coming for you. And if you look at the timing, Christmas, you want to talk about the Grinch who stole Christmas. This is about playing up this, my God, if we enforce the law, think how terrible this is. Of course, we ignore the damage being done to America and Americans by the failures to enforce the law. But if you look at Obama's view of the universe, if you look at this administration, I am so skeptical. I believe that this is just a way of saying, wouldn't it be horrible if we did this?
Well, Mike, I mean, you know, it's funny because at the same time, we wound up getting a report last week that says that deportations under Obama have plummeted during the second term, right? So you've got 2012, more than 409,000 deportations. And in 2015, they say it's 235,000. Now, you and I know that that's really not a true 235,000. So how can we believe that President Obama, with only 1 year left on his record, right? He wants to fundamentally transform America. He's going to allow DHS to start deporting the people that he let in.
Look, there's no way that he's going to do it. There is no way that this is what they want to see accomplished. Again, I think it's a publicity stunt. And remember, you've got Hillary saying, hey, Obama went way too far. I wouldn't doubt for a moment that the sequel to this news release is going to be Hillary talking about how when she's elected, God forbid, you can forget about any sorts of operations like this. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, Dennis. And it's inconsistent with everything this administration has done since Obama came to office.
I've got an idea, Michael. Instead of doing all this, the raids and everything else, how about if we were to just turn off the magnet that gets these people here in the first place? What happens if we start fining the employers who employ these people and then start prosecuting them, turning off the jobs? You think these people will start self-deporting?
Well, some will, but here's the problem that you will see happening. A lot of illegal aliens, or a lot of aliens intending to come to work, will commit fraud to get green cards based on bogus marriages. The entire immigration system lacks integrity. Immigration fraud was identified by the 9/11 Commission as a primary entry and embedding tactic of terrorists and criminals. So we have to anticipate that even if they went seriously after the employers, that the reaction to that, this is a balloon. You push one end, it's going to bulge somewhere else. You're going to see a lot more people either getting labor visas by lying or getting involved with marriages and lying or claiming political asylum and lying. So we need to have many more agents working inside the United States. Look, we only have 7,000 ICE agents. Remarkably, 2 years ago, they stopped reporting the number of actual agents claiming it's national security. I think it's about not wanting to anger Americans, because we know how many Border Patrol agents there are, well over 20,000. We know there's well over 20,000 immigration inspectors at ports of entry, CBP inspectors, and we know that there's 45,000 people working for TSA. More than half of the immigration agents are working on customs cases. So if you're lucky, you have 3,000 immigration agents for the whole country. We need to have 10 times that number, which, by the way, would still be less than the number of New York City police officers enforcing the laws from within the interior, going after the fraud, going after the criminals, adding agents to the drug task force and the joint terrorism task force. Most people don't know this, but the FBI...
But Michael, wait. Okay.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that the FBI is second only to immigration is second only to the FBI in the number of agents it assigns to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We need many more agents on the ground inside the country.
All right, so let me say this, though, Michael, and I have to wind up. We're running out of time here.
Sure.
Let me say this. How can you start to process the deportation of people and come up with a number, say that we're going to start deporting X amount of people, and even think that that's going to make a dent, when you don't know how many people you have in your country illegal to begin with? You are the person who told me. I remember when we first met. Let me tell people what our relationship is going back and forth.
Sure.
When you and I first met, I was making They Come to America, the cost of illegal immigration. It was you who told me that President Reagan in 1986 thought that he was going to be giving amnesty to 1 million people, and it turned out to be almost 4 million people.
Correct.
So we keep on hearing this number about 11 million, 12 million. You just even said 15 million. From what I've come back to believe, especially if history repeats itself, we're looking at 30 to 40 million people. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're right. Saldana gave that number. It's not my number. I agree with you. But here's the point. When we have politicians saying we can't deport all of them, so let's legalize them, that would be an act of national suicide, because there'd be no capacity to interview them, conduct field investigations, and determine their true identities. Look what just happened in California. Look at Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square bomber. We gave him citizenship, and months later, he sets off a car bomb in Times Square. Same thing with the Tsarnaev brothers. The immigration system is in a state of disaster because of both parties, but this administration has done more damage to the immigration system, in my judgment, than any administration in the history of this country.
Michael, this administration has used the immigration system to fundamentally transform America into something we just no longer recognize. You know that, and I know that. And the point is that if we've got 40 million illegal aliens coming into this, or in this country right now illegally, you know and I know those borders are wide open. We got thousands of people coming in here each day. What about we just start turning these people away at the border? That's the great deportation that we can start with. Why won't he do that, Michael?
Well, because it goes against his agenda. The one promise he's keeping is when he said change has come to America. We have an immigration tripod. Let me leave this thought with you and your listeners. We need Border Patrol agents. We need good inspectors at ports of entry. But at the end of the day, we need to back up those two divisions of DHS with meaningful interior enforcement. I call it the immigration enforcement tripod, and we should be targeting primarily the countries that are associated with sending terrorists to the United States and branching out from that point. But that should be the starting point, given the risk that we're facing at the present time.
All right, so let's say, for instance, that this whole DHS thing about how they're going to start these raids is just complete propaganda, which I believe it is. I'm telling the people at home right now, trust me, this is not going to happen. It never happens. So I want to lay this out for you, Michael, and I want you to give me a yes or no, because we're running out of time, and I respect you more than anybody else in the country when it comes to this topic.
Thank you.
If I were the president of the United States, or if Donald Trump was the president of the United States, I say first and foremost, what we have to do is turn off that magnet immediately. And if we turn off that magnet immediately, meaning the jobs and the free this and the free that, these people are going to go home. And then as that's happening, yes, we start supporting the border with more enforcements and we start building a double fence across the border. What say you?
The fence by
I got
itself.
30 seconds.
Okay, we've got to look at the other ways that the aliens enter the United States. None of the terrorists came through ports, came by running the border. They came through ports of entry. Turn off the visa waiver program, and still, I am telling you, the key is enforcement from the interior of the United States.
Michael, listen to me, pal. I have to cut it off at that, but I'm going to have you back. Believe me when I tell you.
Absolutely.
Coming up, predictions for cybersecurity in 2016.